Hello and welcome to this week's Chatty Corner. This week is election week in the UK. And I'm not going to talk about any of that though because this isn't the place for politics. So there you go. But I have been paying a lot of attention to all of that stuff at the moment, so forgive me if this particular week isn't that interesting or long or anything like that, but we'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong. I have 3 news stories to talk about this week, so there is that. But first of all, let's start with the updates, of course, as always. FF2, as usual, is going to be going up periodically over the week, as it did last week. Although I was a bit of an idiot, and the end of Chapter 4 kind of all got smushed on the Sunday night, and I didn't intend that. I kind of wanted maybe Saturday and Sunday for stuff to go up, but never mind. It just happened that way. So, what we've got is, you would have seen part 1 of Chapter 5, and part 2 will, as it did last week, go up alongside this. So, you'll be seeing that at the same time as PlayStation All-Stars, which is Dojo. As of recording, I've got a couple of things that I need to record from Parappa, but mostly I'm almost done on that thing. It's basically to do with like the town in the background of Dojo and like where all that's come from. I've only got a couple of stages of Parappa 1 recorded, so I need to pick up the ones that I'm missing. So that's about it really. If I can get that done, like the Parappa section done tomorrow as I record this, which will be probably today when this goes up, then I will hopefully get the video out by the end of the week, because the Killzone stuff probably won't take me very long unless I drag my heels with it like I have done with Invasion and Radek, because I don't like Killzone. As I've mentioned before, just sitting there going, oh, I'm so bored. But yeah, that's not to have a go at anyone who does like Killzone, that's just how I feel about that series. That's all the updates I've got really. We got that out of the way. That's cool. In other gaming things, I am currently still playing through Xenoblade. I mentioned this like a few weeks back about playing Xenoblade and going through that, but it was part of like 4 other games or something. Well, now it's the only game that I've been playing recently outside of the Let's Plays and stuff, because I've just got really into it, and it's a great game, and yeah, and it's awesome, and I like it a lot. It took a while to really get into it, but yeah, I'm 100 hours into it now, and I'm really enjoying it. And we've got the new one coming out later this year, so I'm kind of looking forward to that. There isn't really much else to talk about in terms of what I'm currently playing. I did buy, because I got an N64 for Christmas, because I got that, I decided I'm going to buy Banjo-Kazooie. So I bought that, and that arrived today. And I've only sort of test played it to make sure it works, because it's an old N64 game, so I need to make sure that it works. Yeah, that's basically that. And the reason that I bought Banjo-Kazooie, this is where I seg rather nicely into the current news story section of this week's Chatty Corner. Yes, I bought Banjo-Kazooie because of the sort of big announcement that was made last week of the launch of the Kickstarter by Playtonic Games, who are basically old school Rare that have just split off from Rare and decided we're going to make Banjo-Kazooie again, but we're going to make it basically just a straight rip-off of Banjo-Kazooie. Because, yeah, Rare has been in a bad place for quite some time. There's still disputes of whether or not the Switch happened before or after they got sold to Microsoft, but happened around the same sort of time. But it's unclear whether or not it's exactly because of it. But yeah, they've announced Yooka-Laylee, these former Rare guys, and it's pretty much just Banjo-Kazooie. It's a 3D platformer to collect them up. It's got a couple of buddies running around. It's named after an instrument, so it's not even ashamed of the fact that it's just straight up a clone of what they've done in the past. It's done pretty well. I've actually supported it, because I want to see more kind of fun kind of games like that on the marketplace. I'm kind of bored of really gruff, generic, gritty games, I'm kind of bored of seeing them. So to see like a nice, big, bright, happy, colourful game makes me happy. I love that sort of around the same time they announced the Kickstarter, Microsoft tried to be like, oh well, Rare have got a new game that we're announcing at E3, and I can guarantee it's going to be Kinect Sports Resort. I don't know. It's not going to be anything people care about. They want people to think it is, but you've got to remember these guys the guys at Playtonic making this Banjo-Kazooie ripoff, they worked at Rare, and then they left Rare to make this game. If they were making a Banjo-Kazooie game, they wouldn't be leaving to make a Banjo-Kazooie game, but what do I know? I'm looking forward to that. I mean, it does kind of raise questions, though, about like how quickly it's gone through, because it seems like nostalgia sells really well on Kickstarter and crowdfunding, in fact, in general, rather than kind of new and interesting products. I think the only kind of new revolutionary type product that got funded through Kickstarter off the top of my head was the Ouya, which of course recently has shut down. I believe they've stopped supporting it because no one bought the damn thing because it was crap. Hey, let's make a games console that only plays Android games. But yeah, that's Yooka-Laylee looks kind of fun, looks kind of interesting, and I've funded it, so I've contributed to the millions that it's making. But it does raise interesting questions about whether or not Kickstarter is good for new projects, because this is coasting along on nostalgia value more than anything else. And there are probably some really interesting ideas on Kickstarter that don't get funded at all, but never mind. Speaking of which, please support my Patreon. No. While we're on crowdfunding. Okay, now on another note, moving back to last week where I mentioned Konami going into complete meltdown over just everything. Well, the good news is that Konami have just announced the Metal Gear 1984 collection. It's a clothesline. It's a line of clothing. And it's like, come on. You've gotten to this point where people are really, really not happy with you. People are they're really kind of questioning what the hell you're up to, and your next move after that point isn't to respond to any of that, it's to go, hey guys, buy a jacket. That doesn't really look good in the situation that you're in, which proves to me that, Konami have just lost their goddamn minds. And they really don't care about video games anymore, it seems. So, yeah. That's kind of where that's at. And this leads on to a question that I was asked. I didn't answer it in the comments because I figured I'd save it for the actual thing. But are there any... I was asked by Gaz Evans 123. Let's say that Konami left video games. Are there any other companies you'd want to see pick up Konami's IPs if they got sold? Well, I'm not sure, because I'm not very good at this kind of thing. Castlevania. I wouldn't have any objections to Nintendo buying the rights to that, because Castlevania's got a strong history with Nintendo and all of that stuff, and that works for me. There's been some people have said they'd like to see From Software buy Castlevania, which certainly makes sense considering they work on the Dark Souls series, and I can get behind that. I've never played Dark Souls, nor do I particularly want to. Doesn't really appeal to me. But looking at that art style and what I know of Castlevania, that seems like it would fit. Like, it seems like it would fit in with that family of games. So I could see that happening. Bomberman could also get a Nintendo, just because of art styles and stuff like that. It seems like that would fit quite nicely. Metal Gear is a tough one. I really don't know where that would fit in anywhere. To be honest, I'm trying to think of what kind of companies. The thing about Metal Gear is it's one of those games that looks really serious on the surface, and then turns out to be completely insane underneath, and is great for it. It's great that it's silly. It's one of the main reasons I like the Metal Gear series. Is just we've managed to avoid drowning and poisonous ends of our hamsters. That's what makes the series what it is. And off the top of my head, the only company that I think could handle it in the same way would just give it free rein to be silly within this semi-serious framework. I wouldn't try to just make it serious. Probably be Namco. Let's be honest, I'm going off Tekken here because Tekken is another game that looks very serious on the surface, and then you actually play it and you realise that hang on, this old guy, the reason why he's not dead is simply because he said, I'm not going to die yet. So, and there's a boxing kangaroo that you can play as. Stuff like that. So, I'd probably go with them just because of that basis. Silent Hill, I would probably like to see given to Sony, of all companies, and the reason for this is based on exactly one thing, and it's the flimsiest thing in the world, which is basically the director of the original Silent Hill works for Sony, and that's literally the only reason. But at the same time, I also don't want that to happen because I want that guy to focus on Gravity Rush 2. I want him to finish that game and get it out and get it finished, and so I can play it because I liked Gravity Rush and I want to see the second one. So I want him to finish that rather than make a new Silent Hill. But if I had to go somewhere, I'd give it to him, or just indeed anywhere where there's a former team member for the Silent Hill series. Oh, and that would be another one. I've just thought, like, Metal Gear as well. Not necessarily sell it to a publisher, but sell it to a developer. It could probably go to someone like Grasshopper, or, what's the other one, Platinum. Platinum would certainly make sense, considering that they have made a Metal Gear game. Not one of the main series. They made Rising, but it's still a Platinum game, and it's still a Metal Gear game, so... I just think that they kind of also have this mantra of having these slightly weird, like, Japanese views of Western things, almost, and they're just completely insane and off the wall, and I think Metal Gear would fit in quite nicely, but, ultimately, Konami probably wouldn't sell off any of its IPs, even if it did leave video games entirely, simply because they could just use those IPs to make pachinko machines. I believe they already do have a Contra pachinko machine. I could be wrong on this, but I'm sure I've heard about it somewhere. And I'm like, well, there you go. Just be Metal Gear fruit machines, whatever. That's what we'd be seeing. So I can't really see. The only way that those IPs would get sold is if Konami, as a corporation, dissolved completely. So, yeah, never mind. But yeah, and then there's this news about PT as well getting completely removed from PSN as well. Like, obviously we knew it was being taken down, but usually when things get taken off the store, you can still download them if you downloaded them previously, but that doesn't seem to want to be the case this time. There are some reports of people who've downloaded it before, who've deleted it, and went to download it again through their history, and it was like, no, you can't do this. So, Konami's just being spiteful with that. It's like, yes, we'll give you this really cool thing that's praised and has got loads of people excited, and now we're just going to snatch it back from you, because screw you. Which I think is not really a good way of doing business, but whatever. So yeah, that's Konami again. Hopefully that won't advance in more bizarre directions next week. On a happier note, but also a tentatively happier note, EA, not very often you'd hear a happier note begin with EA. They announced Mirror's Edge 2 is going to get a release early next year, so first quarter of 2016. And I really hope that game is good. There are some things that make me kind of wary of Mirror's Edge 2. First of all, the fact that it's a reboot, apparently. A reboot of a game that isn't really a franchise, it's one game. A reboot of a single game is bizarre. Then the second thing is, I've heard that Rihanna Pratchett, who was one of the key writers of the original game, isn't actually writing for the second game. So there is that too. And there's also the fact that it's EA, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's EA. If the thing has this potential of just being loaded with microtransactions and like on-disc DLC and God knows what else just to screw everybody. I really hope that's not the case, because I really like Mirror's Edge. Mirror's Edge is a fantastic game, and I really want to see a sequel done well. I want to see it, like, the first game wasn't perfect. It was massively flawed in a number of ways, but with a sequel they could build on that, and I hope that they do. From what they've shown of it, it kind of looks good. Like, it seems like they've sort of gone, okay, the mechanics were solid, but we want to allow people more freedom and more ability to express themselves through the parkour. If they focus on that and don't just EA it up like crazy, then it could be good and it could be amazing. And yeah, so hopefully the announcements we hear more about that, probably at E3, we'll hopefully hear some good stuff coming out about that, because I would love that game to be good. Please EA, don't balls it up. So, thank you for that. There's only one last thing I want to talk about now. I know it's pretty short this week, but one last thing I want to talk about is the other question that I was asked in the comments on last week's Chatty Corner, and that was from Sheezy Bites. What character did you vote for in the Smash ballot? That was the question that he asked me. Well, initially when that was announced, the funny thing was, I was like, you know what, I can't really think of any major Nintendo characters that hasn't already been represented that I would like to see represented. So, and then I saw people saying like, I'd really want to see Earthworm Jim. At that point, I immediately opened up the Smash ballot and went, I would like to see Earthworm Jim, because I'd forgotten about Earthworm Jim. Earthworm Jim was one of the big games that I owned on the SNES back in the day, and I loved that game, and I've got it on the Virtual Console now, and got the HD version as well that they did. I think he'd be an interesting character. Got a lot of interesting potential for moves, potentially. Good history with Nintendo. I think that works. I personally really like him as a character. And yeah, I would be all for Earthworm Jim, and that's why I put him down. The only problem I could foresee is I have absolutely no idea who owns the rights to Earthworm Jim these days. But yeah, so I'd like to see him. If you've got any questions that you would like me to talk about and discuss next week, I will just leave them below and I will include them next week. And sorry, it's been a bit of a short one and kind of a bit of a rambling one. It's kind of a hastily done one in between doing things. So, hope you're all well, and I'll see you with more Fatal Frame this week, and then I'll see you next week with another Chatty Corner. Cool. I'll see you then.